did you know that you need to do this exam? Or how do they know that they need to do this exam? Is it something that they mentioned during the course?
Yeah, I think that's a very, very valid question. And I think my response would be very different 10 years ago. But my response now would be, one, we're having this conversation. So hopefully through this
Yes.
video, they'll immediately, pick that. In addition to my, the actuarial degree, I need to actually do these actuarial exams. Then luckily over the past, decade or two, the profession has really been growing in Kenya. And we are seeing like so many initiatives, because I think it's a gap that the profession has appreciated, that there was a gap for a very long time between the knowledge of the course, like at university, and practice, like like here, like how do people actually become actuaries. So like there was that big gap between students just blindly taking the course, then being caught after 4 years, you're like, oh, this actually significant thing that I should have done. So luckily now the info is out there. So we have like different actuarial bodies. So we have, for the students, they like, for the ones who are currently at university, so I think they'll be so much aware of the Actuarial Student Society. I think that's what it's called. Then now we have like TASC, which is the Actuarial Society of Kenya. Then we have like Actuarial Academy of East Africa. Then, so I think like now we have like so much information, and the students should at least like at a basic know that, it's just not about the course. There's also the exams that are needed. But just to step back on the exam journey on itself. So I think as you rightly mentioned, you need to become aware, like say before you start the course, then sort of like just have a target to start thinking about starting exams, say after your second year of university. Because for the two examining bodies I mentioned, like they sort of like require, like you should have done like say like a year or two at uni, or like they require, like there's different like entry requirements for your first exams. But I think like a good time to possibly think about starting the exams is after your second year of university. So you sort of like need to just have that at the back of your mind. And I think for most students, there's always like the financial constraint, because the exams are pretty expensive, just given our context and most of the students' context. And I think like if we just, but luckily, so the exams are pretty expensive, but luckily over the past decade, there's just like been so much, again, just an appreciation of this gap, and like like the fact that the exams are quite expensive. There's been lots of different organizations partnering up to help students from less advantaged backgrounds be able to access the exams. And
Mercy,
yeah.
you say expensive. What, how much are we talking about?
Yeah, so I think at least like when I did the exams, I remember it used to be in the range of 30,000 per exam.
What?
And that's like a reduced rate. So as a student, you'd qualify for a reduced rate. So I think like now it's around, I think it's still about the same price, maybe 35,000 to 40,000 per exam. But as I mentioned, and this is like what I wanted to really focus on these aspects, because I've been involved in, some of this work, and I'll just like give my own, like my own views on, like what you're seeing, and what I'd encourage students who are just starting out the course just to be extremely aware of these. Yeah, so I think the exams are quite expensive, but as I said, there's just been so much, progress in terms of helping bridge the gap to just ensure there's more fair access to these exams. And there's been like scholarships developed by the Actuarial Academy of East Africa. So it actually currently runs two scholarships. So one is geared towards the I4 exams, so the Institution Faculty of Actuary, so the UK exam. So like there's a scholarship through the Actuarial Academy of East Africa to support students through, their I4 exam, their initial I4 exams, which is what you really need, just the initial exams. Because then like once you get your first job as an actuary, most times the employer takes it up from there. So you'll have a study package, they'll pay for your exams, they'll give you leave so it's just the initial exams, yeah. So they have like these scholarship by the I4, and we'll just share the link under this video. Then there's also a similar scholarship for the Society of Actuary exams. So I think like for me, I know like those are just like two scholarships, but there's now like, like funding available to support students who'd really be keen to take up like the exams alongside their studies. But I think like what I've found, like just volunteering at the academy, it's always like quite difficult to get the students to apply in the first instance. So I think, I think like exactly how you reacted was my exact reaction, right? Because we understand, most of the students now appreciate that you have to do the degree, but you also have to do the exams. Then there's now like possibly funding available. But I think like most of the times they actually struggle to get the number of students to apply. So I think like I just really encourage the students to check out these opportunities, to follow the LinkedIn pages of these different organizations, just so that you're in the know and you know what exactly you need to do to qualify for this funding, so that you are always prepared for when opportunity strikes, right? Because at times it strikes one and it's gone. So I think that's just one point to highlight. Then I think I'll also just highlight how some of my friends were able to still do the exams despite, and again, just to speak about like there's just like there's a few options on ways you can still really try access the exams, finances notwithstanding. So I remember like one of my friends from university, and some of my friends from university actually. So there is now like a few qualified actuaries or actuaries who've gone ahead of these students. And people are always open to paying it forward. People are always open to, like just mentoring the next generation of actuaries. And I've seen cases where people have actually been generous enough to pay for people's exams. So like, for instance, my husband and I, we are both actuaries. We've been able to pay for one or two students, just initial exams, just to help them get into the profession. I have like some friends who like, other senior actuaries in the industry were able to kickstart them off in that manner. So I feel like where there's a will, there's always a way in most instances. So I feel like, like students should really just put themselves out there, like, be willing to like just on the course, If you end up deciding to pursue actuarial, on it with everything it comes with, which, in this case is you have to do the exams, just to practice as an actuary. So, and there's all these opportunities. So there's the Actuarial Academy of East Africa with its scholarships. There's, actuaries who've gone ahead of you. There's a few opportunities that you can really tap into to be able to support you through the exams.
Oh, amazing! And thank you for doing that, Mercy. And it's really commendable. I'm sure the student or whoever you supported appreciate, and hopefully they can also pay
Forward.
forward.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. How many exams are these, and how many did you do during undergrad?
Yeah, that's a very
And
good.
how are you doing them actually? When are you doing these exams?
Sorry, how?
How many exams? How many of these exams are you supposed to do before you qualify?
Qualify.
And how
Yeah.
many did you do during your undergrad?
Oh, no, that's a very good question. Yeah, so the way the exams are structured, so my time, so I I was at university 10 years ago, and like, yeah, I qualified as an actuary. Now it's 5 years ago. So yeah, so this is info relating to that period, but things have not significantly changed. So my time, there were 15 exams needed to qualify as an actuary. Typically, I think at the time, like, yeah, the average time to qualification for an actuary who'd studied, in Kenya. And again, maybe like I'm mentioning Kenya like so much. So I'm from Kenya. But the other thing is, if you've studied in the UK or, like, yeah, in the US, for instance, for if you take particular courses, you'd get exemptions from some of these exams. So naturally, it would mean that maybe they'll take a bit less time to qualify compared to someone who'd have to do all the exams. So that's why I keep like referring to my own context, which was, I had done my degree back in Kenya. Yeah, so at the time it was 15 exams to qualify. So they were split into three categories. So there was the core technical exams, which was basically, like the core actuarial courses. So your statistics, your financial mathematics, which would be courses on time value of money or discounting, or like just the grounding of actuarial work. So that's the core technical stage. Then there was the, no, I've forgotten the names, but yeah, so there was, I think like there was an applied stage, yeah, but there were like basically 15 papers cut across like 3 stages. So then the last phase was the fellowship exam. So like this was the exam just before, like qualification. So like now you're specializing, yeah. So and the core technical exams are like 8 exams out of the 15. So like half of the courses were like just basically the core grounding of actuarial work. So for me, and luckily I was able to do like half of my exams while I was at university. And that I feel like that, like yeah, so yeah, so I think like typically people would do between 2 to 4 exams while at university, then you proceed to do the rest while you are, like you're studying. Sorry, you're working. Yeah, so for me I was lucky enough to do half of my exams while I was at university, and then like proceeded to complete the rest of my exams after university. So I feel like it's a similar structure now. So I think now there are 13 exams, possibly half of them, like people, like yeah, half of them are just the core technical papers. Yeah, but in terms of the typical, like yeah, setup of exams, as soon as I registered for my exams after my second year at university. So I just did one exam in the first instance. So register for the exam. Then I think a typical challenge is always this is something you're doing alongside your degree. So it just makes your university workload just more, but it's necessary. But one thing we don't realize when we are at university is just like the amount of time we actually have. So student life is always the time you have the most, you have sort of like you have the most time in your hands. So it's all about how am I utilizing all this time I have in my hands. At that time, it doesn't feel like you have a lot of time, but there's actually quite some time you have while at university, which everyone should try and utilize to the best possible way. So in my case, I opted to utilize it to start off my examinations. So I was able to do like, 8 exams while at university. Then I think the things that really helped me like do these exams at university was you're doing it in the midst of other students who are in the same exact scenario as you are in. So you sort of like you automatically have these buddies you can team up with to do like similar exams, to go through the revision, the waves of revision together. Yeah. So like you sort of like it's like a prime time to actually do things together that will set you up and also your peers up for success in the future. So I'd really encourage students, one, like just know there's opportunities for funding for the exams. There's limited students who are really taking up these opportunities. So go for it. Go for it. Then just accept like what you need to do alongside your studies and just go for it. Like the sacrifice is worth it. So it comes at a sacrifice, but it's totally worth it.